Good Thursday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. The Cavs playing well and continuing to play well when they're healthy. A little later in the show, Sam Amico from 48minutes.com will join us. We'll talk some Cavs basketball. But we begin by talking Browns. Browns on the bye, trying to get that offense straightened out for the final 5 games of the season. They go into the bye 6-6, kind of in the middle of the AFC, still alive, but at 6-6, can they string anything together is the big question. Eric Mangini, former head coach for the Jets, as well as an assistant with the Browns, on FS1's First Things First on if the Browns can turn things around and get into the AFC playoffs.
When Kansas City was struggling, I bought Kansas City stock, and I would buy Brown stock, and it's not based off of Baker. It's based more off the fact that Kareem Hunt's back and that Nick Chubb is back, and they faced a tremendous amount of injuries over the course of the season, and everybody has, but we're putting Baker into a context where we're not taking into account all the other things that were happening surrounding him, the problems with the offensive line in terms of injuries, losing 2 explosive, game-changing backs for long stretches of time. Now those guys are back. They've all got an extra week to get healthy, and expectations have changed, and people are going to treat them differently, which is going to help them over the stretch. And I do feel that they can make a run. And as much as Baker is being crushed, he is good enough to win, and he's especially good enough to win when they have the supporting cast in place, which they're getting back to.
Again, Eric Mangini from FS1, First Things First. Let's welcome in John Fanta. John, I agree to a certain extent with what Eric has said. Is this Browns team, can they be a playoff team?
They can be a playoff team, but they haven't played like it to this point. And I think that Eric Mangini brings up the interesting point of having Kareem Hunt back and starting to get healthier. What he didn't bring up was the fact that Joe Woods' defense made a major statement against Lamar Jackson, who doesn't appear to be right here in recent games. Obviously, he missed that Bears game, but really struggled in Miami. He struggled against the Browns. But I think the bigger thing is, look, if you're going to be a playoff team, you've got to score points. And the Browns have failed to reach 14 points in 4 of their last 5 games. And that starts and ends with Baker Mayfield. So we can say that the Browns' success comes down to more than just the quarterback. And Eric Mangini's correct in that the Browns do have pieces. They have talent. They have Kareem Hunt back and the best running back duo in the league when both those guys are on the field and in rhythm. But you still have to have quarterback play. And this goes back to last year when the Browns were rolling and people were saying Baker benefits off of all these pieces. Yeah, but Baker Mayfield was really playing good football. You know, he still has to be able to make those throws, make things happen. The fact is he hasn't been making those throws, and he hasn't been making things happen after he had 3 drives in Baltimore in the 4th quarter in which he could have delivered a game-changing drive, and the Browns were unable to pull through. So there's a lot of blame that can be placed on many different parties. But we know what the most important position is on the field. And until 6 gets going, the Cleveland Browns are not going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further for you. So in their last 7 games, in the 4th quarter, they have scored a total of 7 points. 7 points in the 4th quarter in their last 7 games. That's got to change, and it's got to change immediately if they're going to be a playoff team.
It has to change. And I think back, Dave, to the pivotal moment of this season, in my opinion, where the Cleveland Browns played as close to a complete game as it gets offensively against the Los Angeles Chargers and could not execute on offense down the stretch. When you had as much as they had going well in that game and then could not put the drive together, it said to me, man, this team just doesn't have it down the stretch in games, especially when they're tied or trailing or need to put that drive together. And that's the point in the season where when I look at this 6-6 record, I point to that game the most and say, man, they gave that game away in a couple of ways. But there have been other moments and times too. The Steelers game in Cleveland, the Browns had to win that game. They had a point-blank look at a drive, and Jarvis Landry fumbles, and they just could never put it together. So, look, this team has really struggled late in the game during a time where if it's a tight game, you're in less obvious running downs, and during a time when you're late in the game where a team has you solved. They've got 3.5 quarters on you, and the defense knows what your tendencies are and what you'd like to do. So to me, I think Kevin Stefanski's been trying to find different dimensions to this team. But when you don't have a solidified right tackle position and your running backs have been a bit of a musical chairs act, and the fact is, the biggest issue for this football team was evident on Sunday night. And Dave, I was in M&T Bank Stadium. The Browns don't have much going on the perimeter right now that strikes fear into an opposing secondary. And that's a problem that's not going to just suddenly go away because of a bye week.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So Andrew Berry was asked what you attribute the Browns' inconsistencies to, because they've been kind of all over the place. Here's Andrew Berry yesterday talking about why are the Browns so inconsistent.
I don't think there's necessarily any one reason. Obviously, at times during the season, the different phases of our team have kind of been on or off, throughout the first 12 weeks. And I know that's something that obviously we're hard at work, analyzing for, with our coaching staff, so we can ultimately play our best ball in December. I think just quite honestly, different stretches in the season have had different, different challenges or different issues. So I don't think there's necessarily like just a one size fits all answer to that.
That's fair enough. Let me ask you this coming out of that, John. What tweaks do you think you can make to the offense? Anthony Schwartz could potentially help threaten the perimeter. He's been really inconsistent. I have another one that I want your thought before I throw it out there.
Well, I think Anthony Schwartz is a guy who could be able to affect the Browns in a positive way. We talked all throughout August on this very show about what we thought Donovan Peoples-Jones could be. And Donovan Peoples-Jones has not been good enough this season for the Cleveland Browns for a variety of reasons. They're going to need him to affect the football team in a positive manner if they're going to make a run. It's beyond frustrating, the Rashard Higgins situation. And don't tell me it's just a Kevin Stefanski thing, because this has now happened with multiple different coaching staffs and in multiple different scenarios throughout his time with the Browns. It's clear that Baker Mayfield and Rashard Higgins have a connection. They could have used him on Sunday. How could this football team adapt offensively? I think in the ways that they adapted in Baltimore, and that was getting their tight ends involved. They have 3 talented tight ends when everybody's fully healthy. And through the play action, the Browns are able to find some spacing there to get them involved in the passing game. So I thought Harrison Bryant, he gets nicked up on the play, but he made one of the plays of the game this past Sunday. David Njoku made the play of the game. And it's really something how Njoku at one time wanted to be out of Cleveland and has embraced this organization and has played better than we could have expected, I really think. But look, this team has to figure out a way to get guys involved on the perimeter to create that deep threat. The vertical passing game swung the Browns from good to great last year. When they went to Tennessee and beat the Titans, they were able to hit the deep ball with DPJ. It changed the whole game. It changed their offense. They have not been able to hit those types of plays this season. I think that you're exactly right, Dave, that Schwartz is a guy who you can think about factoring in here and trying something out, because right now the barrel's dry. You've got to figure out a way to get a little bit creative. And the guys that the Browns have in their coaching staff room are creative. Anybody who's going heavily in on the coaches, this is the reigning NFL Coach of the Year. That's not just a dumbfounded moment. Yeah, have people picked up on his stuff a little bit? Okay, But I still trust Kevin Stefanski's ability to doctor some things up. Let's see what he does with the bye week.
I think one of the things that would be effective and would create some problems for defense is I would put Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the same backfield. We saw Kareem Hunt after the 8-game suspension that he had to sit through play a little bit of a fullback. Dude can block as a fullback. He's a threat as a pass catcher. That way you're going to keep a defense from overloading one side of the defense, which I think is happening when they're running. So I am banging the drum to have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the same backfield.
I love you banging that drum. I will come with the tuba right behind you in that band. I'm happy to do that. I don't know if I play it well, but I'm happy to do that. Here's one thing that I would say. This is not a football team that currently can go empty backfield shotgun on third down. Can't do it. Doesn't work. They're all out of sync. They don't have enough on their offensive line right now. Teams know they can blitz Baker, and that Baker's going to have trouble with it. And if he doesn't have a guy in the backfield to help him block, it really becomes hard. This is not a Cleveland Browns team that can go empty backfield. This is not a Cleveland Browns team that went empty backfield last year. If you want to go empty backfield and run a 6-yard flag route on first down, I'm fine with that. They did that on Sunday night, and it worked sometimes. The Browns' goal needs to be 3rd and 4 or less so that they could go with 2 backs in a backfield. This team can't convert 3rd and long. They are who they are. They've got to just almost break you down to build you back up. You got to get back to some basics here. Use the talent that you do have. Hunt and Chubb in the same backfield is a smart idea.
John Fanta and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll delve into Baker Mayfield. Obviously, not 100%. We'll hear from Dan Orlovsky about Baker Mayfield as well as Andrew Berry. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Browns on the bye, 6-6. They will play the Ravens a week from Sunday. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN's First Take on if the Browns can win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback.
I do. I don't necessarily believe in the phrase franchise quarterbacks. I believe in tiers of quarterbacks. I've said them before. You're either a quarterback your team wins because of, you're a quarterback your team wins with, you're a quarterback your team wins in spite of, or you're a quarterback that your team loses because of. I think Baker is a quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with. I know that this season hasn't kind of evidenced that, but I would say to this. Number one, the injuries have to be a part of the conversation. A quarterback has a torn labrum in his left shoulder. He's also got foot, back, everything beat up injuries. Number two, there's only been really 1 year in Baker's career that he's been healthy with competency around him. There's been a lot of distractions this season. There's been a lot of disappointment, and the injuries have played its part. His rookie year, then his second year with Freddie Kitchens. Last year's the only year that he was healthy and there was competency around him, and you watched him lead his team to the playoffs and get a playoff win. So I think he could be that quarterback that they win with.
And John Fanta, I think Dan Orlovsky makes some really good points. I agree with almost everything he said. And I would take it a step further, though. If he is a quarterback that you can win with, but you don't win because of, he doesn't get $40 million a year.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. So Baker Mayfield can both be a quarterback for an organization in the National Football League and not be an elite quarterback. Look, he's not an elite quarterback. But when you consider in the National Football League the quarterback situations in this league, and I will run you through a couple of them here briefly. The Washington football team, Taylor Heineke. You're not winning a Super Bowl with that guy. The New York Giants with Daniel Jones, they're in a big conundrum. What's the future hold for a team like the Steelers at the quarterback position? What's the future hold for the Houston Texans? What's the future even hold for the Denver Broncos, who use that stopgap with Teddy Bridgewater? He gets hurt. There's confusion there. Even the New Orleans Saints. There are so many organizations in this league that are searching for a guy that they would take Baker Mayfield. You know why they would take Baker Mayfield? Because they believe that they could put a product on the field with him. Remember, not around him, with him, that can win football games. You don't just win a playoff game in the National Football League. That just doesn't happen. And in Cleveland, we know that. Organization hadn't done it since 1994 before Baker Mayfield led the Cleveland Browns to a postseason win after they lost their head coach to COVID, after they lost several players and assistant coaches as well. This season has been hard on Baker Mayfield. One thing I will say, Andrew Berry laid the cards out yesterday by saying that we expect Baker Mayfield to play his best football in the remainder of the season. In other words, the injuries are not an excuse, or else he would be sitting at home on Sunday. That's just the fact. If the injury were the reason for him not succeeding, the Browns would have held him out longer than they did. They're listening. These are professionals, especially in 2021, Dave. This is not 1988. You know, if you've got a lot of pain, you're not playing anymore. There's plenty of evidence of NFL retirement guys that what injuries did to their bodies. So the Browns know that Baker Mayfield is healthy enough to play, or else they wouldn't be playing him. He is a good enough quarterback to win at a high level. He showed it last year, and he's not the only reason why this team has underperformed.
Yeah, I mean, to put all the blame on him is it's not fair and it's misguided. Andrew Berry also yesterday talked about Baker Mayfield being the quote-unquote franchise quarterback.
I think with Baker, especially from a long-term perspective, you really try and take a big picture approach. It really, with any player, it's about body of work over really over several years, and also taking in context the environment or a particular individual situation. We've seen Baker play a lot of good football here. We've seen Baker play good football, this season. I know he's excited, and we're excited for the opportunity ahead of us. And we expect him to play his best football moving forward over the next 5 weeks.
What does he have to show you in these next 5 weeks to really solidify, how you feel about him and where everybody goes from here?
Yeah, Mary Kay, I don't know it's so much about, showing me anything. Like, really, our focus is on, winning games and playing at a high enough level that, allows us to, be in a strong spot in December. That's really where the focus is. I think Baker showed a lot over the past, 4 or I guess kind of 3+ seasons. So I don't necessarily subscribe to this notion that there's some, something in these next 5 games that's of particular focus, so to speak.
And again, John, the Browns are going to wait to figure out what they do contract-wise long-term, because there's no need to decide. He's under contract for next year. They can franchise him after that if they need to. It's probably not ideal, but you want to know exactly what you have. What are your thoughts just on, Baker Mayfield moving forward, and the Browns moving forward with Baker Mayfield potentially?
Well, I just don't think that he's worth the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson type of money that we saw in the preseason. And the Browns went into the season for a reason, and that is to see exactly what they have and exactly who they have. Again, Baker Mayfield's value has dropped financially. I mean, there's no question about it that this season there have been some red flags where we thought in the second year of the Stefanski system we would see him take a climb. We haven't seen that. Instead, we've seen some regression. So you have to both understand that, yeah, there's been regression, but Andrew Berry used the term body of work. Sometimes I actually think it's kind of funny, Dave. This is my little pet peeve rant of the day. When people are like, oh, the GM's not going to unveil a whole lot, or he's not going to say a whole lot. Yeah, but he said something there. And he said that he's not necessarily looking at the next 5 games defining whether or not Baker Mayfield stays or goes. But I do think that they are looking at the next 5 games and saying, okay, well, what is this kid's value? What is the marketplace here for him? And what is it that we need to do to make sure that we are doing right on us as an organization so that we can win with him on the field and not lose because we gave or handed out a bad deal and aren't able to build with him. And I think a lot of Browns fans want Aaron Rodgers. They want Patrick Mahomes. They want Lamar Jackson. That's not the sole formula of how you could win in the National Football League. So the long-term thing is, I still would say Baker Mayfield is more a franchise quarterback in Cleveland than he is not. I think that there's been negatives this year. I do think injuries have affected some. I do think that the next 5 games are important and that he does have to show something, and it'll be very intriguing to see. But we weren't asking ourselves the question heading into this season whether or not Baker Mayfield was this organization's quarterback. We were asking ourselves what his value is and how the Browns can navigate the marketplace. And I don't think that there's enough reason to now say that just because Baker Mayfield's had some weak performances, that the Cleveland Browns now need to move off of him and get back into the QB marketplace, when that, as we well know, is very, very difficult to just hit in the NFL.
Yeah, and the question is, if you're moving off of Baker Mayfield, what are you moving on to? Don't assume that Aaron Rodgers wants to come here. Don't assume that Russell Wilson wants to come here. Why would Russell Wilson come here with what we have at wide receiver when he's got DK Metcalf, he's got Tyler Lockett, and that crew? Now, granted, his offensive line isn't what it is here or would be here, but those are all things that a quarterback's going to look at. And quite honestly, playing in snow and weather in November and December isn't hot. Now, Aaron Rodgers is used to it, I'll give you that. But
Sure.
Not a lot of people are signing up to do that.
No, and when has anybody of that caliber willingly said, I'm taking my talents to Cleveland, Ohio? I'm a Clevelander, you're a Clevelander. We love Cleveland, but we got to keep it real.
Yeah.
We got to keep it real here on this show. That hasn't happened. A move of that magnitude at the quarterback position. That has not happened.
Well, and you're coming into a run-oriented offense. Why would you do that if you're Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson?
And by the way, you're coming into the AFC North, which has Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and we'll see. I think in Pittsburgh right now, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers right now are definitely looking at this situation in the mirror and thinking, oh boy, we've got to figure things out. But they're one of many organizations that are going to be throwing the lottery ball out there and saying, here's what we think we've got at our quarterback position. Not everybody has a Bill Belichick that can mold a Mac Jones just so suddenly. The Browns do have a good coach. They do have a defense that I think is the X factor that we're going to get into this show a little bit later about this defense. They've got pieces and parts. And they do have a capable quarterback. Again, don't let what's happened here in the last month and change. I know that's hard because we're in a what have you done for me lately world. But don't let that now take your judgment into the grass will be greener on the other side. Because we know that the grass is not always greener. I think a lot of people are watching Baker struggle. And because of all the quarterback changes that this organization's gone through over the last 2 decades, that now becomes the mind trigger. That's not how it always needs to be. These are not the same old Browns, and Andrew Berry's not the same old general manager.
I agree wholeheartedly. The one thing Andrew Berry should have earned is some trust from the fan base. John Fanta and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will get to that Browns defense that John told you we're going to talk about. We'll hear from Andrew Berry on Jadeveon Clowney. We'll also look at some team coverage grades from Pro Football Focus and an interesting stat about Denzel Ward. All that ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns 6-6 on the bye week. One thing that has been progressing the last few weeks has been the defense. Andrew Berry talked about Jadeveon Clowney and what he has seen from the defensive end that the Browns brought in on a one-year deal.
Yeah, I think JD's done a really nice job for us. Run and pass game, he's been very disruptive. And he's had a handful of games where, really he and Miles have really taken it over for us on the defensive side of the ball. So I've been very pleased with the results that we've seen from him on the field. Again, in terms of the long-term stuff, contractual stuff, we'll have plenty of time for that. But I think he's had a really nice season for us.
And John Fanta, it sure sounds like Andrew Berry is agreeable to having Jadeveon Clowney back, and I think that's a good idea. He's been pretty much what you had hoped he would be, I think.
Speed, a presence. He has stayed healthy for the most part. He certainly has had some shortcomings in that area, but Jadeveon Clowney has given the Browns what they were looking for on this one-year deal. And we said when they made the deal, it was smart. Because he's going to play motivated football, and I think that he has. And I think that he's earned his spot going forward if the team would like to go in that direction. The Browns should keep Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, I think that Jadeveon Clowney, too, in the way that he's played recently, it's a reflection of the defense as a whole. This defense is playing better football. They keep getting better. Jadeveon Clowney keeps getting better. Myles Garrett has always been a great football player. Even he has intensified his level this season. So for me, the big question was when you lose a guy like Olivier Vernon is how are the Browns going to be able to set things up on their defensive front along with Garrett? And Clowney has answered that question. He's done it in a good way. It feels like that he's a good guy in the locker room. It feels like that this is a guy that makes sense for the Browns going forward. He has earned his spot, and I'm really intrigued to see if what we saw this past Sunday night and what we have seen recently from the Cleveland Browns defense keeps on carrying, because there was pressure on Joe Woods in this season, and it was a fair amount of pressure. Right now, Joe Woods' defense is performing, and Clowney's a major reason for it. He has earned the idea that he can be a Cleveland Brown after this year.
Yeah, and, he is better than advertised in the run game as well. That run defense improves because of him. All right, this is from Pro Football Focus. Best team coverage grades 2021. Bills number 1, 89.7. Patriots 2 at 86.5. Browns at 3 at 80.8. And, John, there have been a couple of instances where the defense hasn't done great, and there have been a couple of instances, especially lately, where they have played really well. I like this defense when it is being aggressive. I think it has the athleticism and the parts to go out and dictate tempo, not react to it. And I hope Joe Woods continues to do that. I think they did it really well against Lamar Jackson, and that's probably one of the toughest guys in the NFL to do it against.
Be the aggressor. Cushion coverage doesn't work. It wasn't working. And Joe Woods even admitted about halfway through the 12 games, he said, look, I'm realizing that my team is better in a press coverage situation. They are. This Browns team has guys who can cover people from the line of scrimmage to the end zone. Have they had their blow-ups earlier in the season? Yes. That Chargers game really does come to mind. The Cardinals game, blown coverages. Lamar Jackson made an insanely good play on Sunday night on that touchdown pass in which he backs up about 20, 25 some odd yards and still is able to to throw it to Andrews for the touchdown. But you know what? This defense dictated the way that game was played, which makes the loss that much more frustrating because they played more than well enough to get a win. But John Johnson has come into his own. I think that when you look at the rookies, Newsome, and when he's been on the field, JOK, it's clear that this personnel department has nailed it on those players. There's a lot to like there in the Browns secondary. Denzel Ward's coverage grades have been fantastic. So one thing that's there, Dave, in those metrics, those PFF metrics, it suggests that for Cleveland, like you look at the top flight offenses that they're about to see on their schedule. Ravens again, when Lamar's on, they're a top flight offense. The Raiders certainly have explosive playmaking ability. The Packers on Christmas Day, Aaron Rodgers. This defense has to hold up, but I think they're going to. Like I would lean more so yes than no, and I think that's a very encouraging sign. So that's why the Cleveland Browns, to Eric Mangini's point back in the first segment about why this team could still make a run, the reason is their defense has evolved. You couldn't say that earlier in the season. They had to score 40 points. The frustrating thing is now it's the offense that's having the issues. They just haven't played that complete game that you're looking for, other than the Cincinnati game.
Yep, and they need to put about 5 of them together to finish out this season. You mentioned Denzel Ward. This one is really interesting as well. Again, from Pro Football Focus, 327 coverage snaps, 0 touchdowns allowed on 15-plus yard throws. So you can't get any better than that in coverage for Denzel Ward.
Worth every penny, and a leader. He is. He's a leader. He changes the whole way that they defend when he's on the field. And he has that presence about him where he might just be on one man on a play, but, man, he takes away so much. He takes away an area of the football field. You are not throwing at him. And with him and Greg Newsome, the Browns are in good hands. They are in good hands at the cornerback slots. And I think that Denzel Ward is a guy that we were not sure of heading into this season, in that he had dealt with the injury issues. Like another guy that has had trouble staying on the field for the Cleveland Browns. But we always knew he was talented. You look at numbers like that, that's not talented. That is superb. Like that is on another level. And that's what Denzel Ward has been. He was a home run pick the night in the draft. He got rave reviews out of college, and he has been that guy for them as a pro. So it's really encouraging to see that you do have a lockdown corner. Like we don't go into games saying, man, the Browns are going to have a heap of trouble on the perimeter defending this guy. We go into games saying, can they defend the middle of the field? Can they get off the field on third down? But a lot of that's underneath, and a lot of that's over the middle. Denzel Ward, when you have a lockdown corner, it can take away a quarterback's best weapon, and that's who Denzel Ward is to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, totally agree with that. He has been outstanding, and you would expect an extension to be coming for Denzel Ward in the offseason, certainly. John Fanta and I are going to take one more break. On the other side of the break, Andrew Berry will discuss bringing a lot of the offense back and not getting the results the Browns had hoped to get in the first 12 weeks. We'll also take a look at that wide receiving core. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Browns on the bye at 6-6, and one of the head scratchers of the first 12 games of the season. There have been several for the Browns, but one of them has been the offense brought back pretty much everybody and just haven't been getting the results they expected. Andrew Berry talked about that yesterday.
We all think the offense can play at a higher level. I think, like I mentioned, Jake, I think the biggest thing is really just the consistency in the passing game, which is a number of things. And again, I know our staff is hard at work, finding the right solutions that will allow us to play at the highest level, going into the last 5 weeks of the season. But again, every year is unique. You're not entitled to, top level performance just because we return the same guys. You really do have to work at it every year, and on a week-to-week basis. And this upcoming bye week, or this current bye week, I should say, will play a big role in that in terms of getting us back on track where we need to be.
And John Fanta, the receiving core as of late, it's been pretty obvious. There's not a lot of separation. There's not a lot of room for Baker to fit it in. I know that's part of that is playing in the NFL, but it's been rough. There's been drops. I mean, is it fair to say they just have to play better? Or, Jarvis Landry is beat up. An MCL sprain's not anything to minimize.
They're the single biggest reason why this offense hasn't performed. I mean, they are. Like, as much as people want to blame Baker Mayfield, how could you not also talk about the receiving core equally as much to blame? And you just look at this situation. Jarvis Landry is the juice of the offense, the heart and soul of this team. He's trying. It's clear that he's played through pain, but I wouldn't expect anything less from Juice. The Higgins situation, a brutal situation. They need him on the field to impact the game. Donovan Peoples-Jones, they got to have him making some sort of a contribution and making things happen for this football team. Somehow, some way. Don't tell me that he can't find separation. We've seen him find it. Anthony Schwartz is a guy that can get in the vertical passing game and can make things happen for this football team. I don't think that you can just sit here and say on December the 2nd for a 6-6 team with 5 games to play that the receiving core is what it is. You've got time right now, time to review film, time to look at your possibilities. We've seen less talented receiver cores win football games in the NFL. The Browns still have talent in that room. Do you know how many teams would kill for Jarvis Landry? Do you know how many teams would take a DPJ or a Rashard Higgins? Look, they would. And the Browns have 3 tight ends. And oh, by the way, they have receiving running backs, all of which need to be in this passing game as well. Whether it is Demetric Felton for a snap, whether it is Dearness Johnson in a situation, or of course your 2 best running backs and 2 of the best in the league in Chubb and Hunt. The Browns have enough in that room. This coaching staff has to find a way to get it all combined and working together. But I don't think it's as simple as, because Baker Mayfield's really struggled, that's the reason why the Browns offense has faltered. And one other thing, Dave, I saw this take out there earlier this week about, if only the Browns had another vertical passing threat, referring to Odell Beckham Jr. He didn't want to be here. So you can throw that out the window as a reason why the passing game isn't working. He wasn't a part of the winning formula when he was a Cleveland Brown. We wish him the best going forward, but that wasn't him not being around isn't causing the Cleveland Browns worse problems.
No. That's I heard that as well, and that's anybody who's paid attention would disagree. Let me ask you this as we move forward. If you can fix one thing, and you only can fix one, in the final 5 games that you think would help turn this around for the Browns, what would that one thing be that you would fix?
Well, I'd fix the quarterback's labrum because I just want to make sure that that's okay. I would fix the perimeter is what I would do. I would try to, if I could fix one thing and go poof, it's fixed and it's in a good way, it would be the Browns' ability to throw the football down the sidelines and actually have receivers who are getting space for Baker Mayfield to throw the football to them. I am sitting inside M&T Bank Stadium on Sunday night at the 25-yard line. Was fortunate to have a nice seat at the game. And I'm watching this game in person, and I'm looking at the Browns wide receiver core. And I'm not kidding you, when at least 7 or 8 times in the game, I'm looking at a play saying, there's nobody open on the field. There's nobody open on the field for this quarterback to throw the ball to right now. So am I going to fault him if he takes a sack, hang on to the football, or am I going to fault him for throwing the ball away, which he doesn't do enough of? No, I'm not. I think that if they could fix one thing, it would be the ability to strike in the vertical passing game. Is part of that the quarterback? Heck yeah. But you also have to have guys that are able to get open. And right now, this receiver corps has had a lot of issues opening things up. So hopefully the reigning NFL Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski, and his offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, can find ways to create openings for Baker Mayfield to throw the football. Baker's missed throws. But if I just fix the quarterback, I got to be able to have receivers who can catch the football and get open. And I also got to be able to have enough time for that quarterback. So, right tackle would be the other answer, because Jack Conklin not being a part of the equation. The Browns don't have offensive line depth. The loss of Chris Hubbard was a huge loss for this football team. You can't overstate it. But vertical passing game would be the number one area, because the Browns don't have a downfield threat for a 65-yard gain right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. If you can do that, it will only make the run game as well, because you got to take some people away from the box and pay attention to that, and it gives you the ability to put points on the board, which is what we are lacking. John Fanta, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, John.
Dave, it's always great to join you and talk some Browns. I know you're talking basketball next. I'll end with a parting shot. Shout out to Cleveland State. They start Horizon League play tonight. Good luck to the Vikings and Dennis Gates. Big season ahead.
All right, John Fanta. You can always hear him on FS1 doing college basketball, Big East style. John, as always, keep up the great work. Thanks for the time.
Dave, thank you for having me.
All right, John Fanta, again, big-time college basketball play-by-play guy and an up-and-coming star. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavs. Sam Amico will join us. Cavs Evan Mobley with an NBA Rookie of the Month award. We'll talk that and more. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers, 12-10 on the year and playing really well, a young team. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, Evan Mobley, Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month, averaged at 15 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. Even more importantly than that, he was banged up and not in there, and there was a noticeable difference the way the Cavs were able to play in that time that he was gone. But what have you seen from Evan Mobley, third pick in the draft, and looking like he's going to be a star?
You just said it. The way to gauge a rookie is to be able to tell, or any player really, how much a team's able to win when they're not in there. And of course, we saw the Cavs not win when he wasn't there, but still played hard and still did a lot of things right. And they had a tough schedule to boot. But, I think when you look at him, you see a guy finally who is talented enough to kind of change the course of the franchise, which is what, without LeBron James on the team, they've really been lacking. This is the first time since the year 2000, that they're above 522 games into the season when LeBron's not on the team. And I think you could factor in all the things last year and all the players who are back, and the coaching staff is back with JB Bickerstaff, and he deserves a lot of credit. But the one big change really has been the addition of Mobley in the draft, and just his ability to not only adapt to the NBA game, but be a force on both ends right away as 19, 20-year-old.
So I mentioned 12-10, and then last night they go out and snap a 20-game losing streak to the Miami Heat. So at what point do you say, hey, these guys are playoff contenders? Are we at that point 22 games in? I mean, team's awfully young still.
Yeah, yes, you can say that right now. With the way, you're a quarter way through the season, you look at kind of not only how they've played with Mobley on the floor, but again, the credit to JB Bickerstaff, how they're playing when, for a while they were missing Mobley and Allen and Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen, and now they're without Chetty. So it's really just kind of the mindset and the style that they're playing and the system that they're using, and Bickerstaff being able to get the most out of his guys regardless of who's on the floor. He's getting the best out of his players regardless of who's there. So I think you can make the case that, this should continue the rest of the season. There's no reason for the wheels to come off. You look at last season, Dave, you had Kevin Porter Jr.'s situation, you had Andre Drummond's situation. Now you've lost Colin Sexton, but they've kept on rolling, and there's no dark clouds over the team this year. And I think that's been part of the reason they've been able to just go out and play with a ton of confidence. So sure, you could consider them a playoff contender now. Now again, you still have 60 games left. So what you have to do is be able to continue down the current path.
And again, I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it. It's a really young team. How surprised are you that they've played like this, given you have so many guys that are in their first, second, third year in the league?
I think that the Cavs are surprised at the way it's going. I don't think that they were expecting it to happen for the reason you mentioned. The core of this team, Jared Allen, Markkanen, Darius Garland, who's really having an underrated breakout type of year because of Mobley. People are kind of overlooking that, the way Darius Garland has played. But you look at those four, you throw in Okoro, you throw in Chetty, all those guys, and Lamar Stevens, who had a nice game in Miami. All of those guys are still very young. I mean, the four starters that I just listed, and take out Sexton, all of those guys are 24 or younger, so it's almost like you're considered an old guy if you're 24 on this team. But then you factor in important pieces. Kevin Love's having a great year coming off the bench, exactly the role he needs. Ricky Rubio obviously has been a godsend in that trade. And even Ed Davis, who isn't seeing the floor a lot, while yes, the core is young, and the guys who are really winning the game, so to speak, are younger. Those veterans, having those veteran voices are so important. And again, they didn't have that last year. Love was injured. They traded Drummond. They traded JaVale McGee. It's very vital to have those type of guys to help push the youth, not only in practice but also on the court, and lead by example.
All right, so the $1 million question again. Team, you mentioned all the guys that are 24 or younger. What do they need to do to continue playing well and avoid hitting the quote-unquote wall that sometimes happens with young teams.
Yeah, it can happen with a young player like Mobley too. You see a lot of that, rookies hitting that the so-called rookie wall. A big part of that's going to be, again, going back to the veterans, pushing them. Veterans don't typically hit that wall. They push through it when they get to that 45, 40, 50 game mark where the wheels might feel like they're starting to come off, or, we have a game against Sacramento in February. Nobody's excited about that. How do you convince them to go out and play hard and take care of business? I think the reason for optimism and all that is because it's all about the mindset, and JB Bickerstaff has them believing 1 through 12 that, we're going to be a factor this year, and we're going to go in and spoil everybody else's party, and we're going to take care of the games we should take care of, beating an Orlando at home like they did last weekend. Those are the games that, the past 3 years, you couldn't always count on them winning because they would come out flat or whatever. So I think right now, Dave, it's really just about the mindset is, look, when we hit a speed bump, we've got to find a way to push through that. And they've done that well so far, not just, from game to game, but actually in the games. We saw in Phoenix where they were getting creamed. They had every reason to get creamed against the defending Western Conference champions on the road the night after playing the Lakers, and they were down 16 or so, and you thought, well, this is going to be a beatdown. But they came back out in the second half and played hard and did what they needed to do to compete in that game. So if that mindset continues, it's really not about who's healthy and who's not. It's about having that right mindset. JB Bickerstaff continuing to get the most out of the guys he has in the lineup and the hand he's been dealt. If that continues, this whole season will continue, and they'll be able to push through that mid-season, late-season wall.
So Mobley clearly the most important addition to it, and he's going to be a guy that you can build around. He certainly looks like one of those big-time stars that you build a franchise around. Other than that, who's the next most important addition? Because there's been several additions to this. Who do you think is the another important addition to this team?
Well, we've seen obviously Ricky Rubio have that huge night at Madison Square Garden. He's had a couple of really big nights. He's also, had some other inconsistent nights, but his purpose isn't to come in and score a ton of points or rack up a lot of stats. It's kind of just to keep everybody settled, and he's done that magnificently. I heard Colin Sexton earlier in the year say when Colin was healthy, things could get a little wild with Darius and I out there sometimes, and Rubio comes in and settles everybody down. And when you factor in that they really gave up Taurean Prince, which he's done a nice job when he's played in Minnesota, the Cavs really won that deal because Rubio's really been the type of backcourt voice that you need to kind of get everybody organized, come in games, get people calmed down, and then showing that in the event he can't do that and he can't get people calmed down, he just takes over sometimes like he did in New York. So huge addition. Again, probably more than the Cavs were expecting. He's giving them more than what they hoped for from the trade. I also think Lauri Markkanen has been, pretty good when he's healthy and been able to be out there. He kind of struggled a little bit in Miami, but that's okay. They didn't need him a ton. And the games they've needed him since he's come back from the protocol, he's really delivered. People saw the Cavs roster going into the season, 3 7-footers. Well, this isn't the way the NBA is going, but they've made it work. And Markkanen is a huge reason why, with his ability to stretch the court. He's getting more comfortable. And both of those guys, Rubio and Markkanen, really have a large hand in the success that they've had so far.
Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Cavs, 12-10 on the year and playing well. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. And Sam, we've talked a lot. One of the guys we haven't mentioned has been Jared Allen, and man, has he been good. I mean, and you alluded to it, but you pair him with Mobley, and there's a lot to like. Both young, big guys, and going to be problems for a long time.
Developed post move before he was at a couple post moves, actually. Before he was just kind of a guy who was going to score off the break or, off an offensive rebound or something. Now you can throw the ball down to him in the low post, and he has that little spin move that he's been using on guys. You could tell he's put in a lot of effort on his footwork during the off season. And yeah, I mean, really, if you have to, obviously the All-Star game is in Cleveland this year. And if you have to pick one Cleveland representative who's really, whose numbers have been through the roof, and who's just gotten so much better from last season and who's been vital to have on the court, you probably would pick Jared Allen. I mean, and that's not a slight to Darius Garland, but Mobley rookies don't really often go. So really, if you're looking at the guy who's just really making a difference in terms of a big man, and there aren't a ton of, the league's gone so small, which is what makes what the Cavs and Allen are doing so cool, is that they're going back to the old way of doing things and rolling out 3 7-footers. And Allen has just been not only developing as an offensive player, but along with Mobley, has really making it difficult for other teams to score at the basket. So the Cavs are they keep going this way. They're going to have at least one All-Star for the game in Cleveland in February. And if they don't have one, they're going to have two, and it'd probably be Allen and Garland right now. But I would say Allen's your number one guy right now for that opportunity.
And you know what? It's really good to see. I know he worked hard before, but they gave him a big contract, and he just continued to work hard, if not even harder. So that's another really good sign. Let me ask you this. Is there a piece that the Cavs might potentially try to add as you look at this, if they think they can make a little bit of a move in the playoff push? Is there a piece that you think they try to add?
Sure. Without Colin Sexton, who, to his credit, took a step back from being a volume scorer this year and was averaging 16 points at the time of his injury, which was 8 points less than last year. And it wasn't because he wasn't as good. It's just because they have more pieces, and it's more of a kind of 1992 Cavs team concept with, back then Price, Doherty, and Nance, and now they have Garland and Mobley and Allen. You didn't need Colin Sexton to score as much, but you still are lacking that consistent 16 points a game. Now, if you feel like you could either, get to the playoffs or maybe win a series when you're there, which to me, right now, that would be the case. You would think that this team, home court advantage or not, could win a series in the playoffs because of the way they're playing. So if you feel you can do that and it makes sense, you're getting a piece that could help you not only do that, but continue on with you down the future. I think that they could certainly go out and get that type of piece. And it would be obviously a shooting guard, small forward type. You'd have to give up something depending on what you wanted. But if you wanted some real help, you're talking names like Cedi Osman or Isaac Okoro. I think that would be a decision that they would make, seeing how the next 20 games go. And, you have all the way until the February 10th trade deadline to do it. So I don't think that's in their thinking right now because you don't want to mess up or mess with a good thing. But I think certainly that possibility exists that, we need to get maybe not a 16-point game scorer, but a guy who we know is going to go out and get us 11 regardless of what happens and could get 20. So maybe they will get to that point. They're not there yet. But if there is a spot that needs improvement, it's who's going to fill in for Colin and be be that regular guy with him being out for the rest of the season.
And you know, the Cavs still 12-10, 11-4 when they have Garland, Mobley, and Allen all play together. So those three guys getting it done, and that's a really nice foundation to build around. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. I'm sure we'll be bugging you more. Cavs are on the upswing, and some good things to talk about as far as the NBA franchise in town goes. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, thanks for having me. And as long as they keep playing well, I'm always happy to be bugged.
All right, Sam Amico.
Take care.
Make sure you read him, hoopswire.com, Sam Amico. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Tomorrow, Mac Robinson filling in as the host. Scheduled guests will be the D-Man, Dennis Manloff, and Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Tomorrow at 4, we will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.